everyone. My name is Elena Agram-Gamova. I'm the head of talent acquisition and development at Horizon Industries. And joining me here today is
Manga Swami.
We are part of the team that works on making sure that people join Horizon and make sure they have all the resources, information available to them as candidates as they go through our interview process and on board with our company, hopefully. So some of the things we wanted to start sharing is a little mini series around helping candidates make the most out of their experience. So whether you are interviewing or going through the candidate experience with us or any other company, we hope that these tips are going to be helpful to you from a recruitment perspective, and we'll give away as many secrets and and secret sauces as we can from a recruitment perspective about where candidates kind of fall short, where they can do better, and kind of what do we look for as employers in general. So before we dive into today's topic, Manga, give us a little bit of background about your recruitment experience, what type of roles you recruit for.
Yeah, hi. So I've been with Horizon for the last 3 years, and I recruit a lot for low-code development platform called Appian. So in Appian, we recruit for all kinds of roles. We look for leaders, also project managers, delivery managers, and of course developers. So in our hiring process, they walk through various stages, and the candidates go through various types of screening with us. And it is interesting for us to see how these candidates respond with various managers and how they, go through the process. And as recruiters, you kind of get the front seat in watching their interaction. You can see the candidate, they have so much potential. You really feel like, holding their hand and getting them through the end. But, there's only so much you can do. And sometimes you just wish you can give them these kind of feedbacks and, get them another do-over or something. So hopefully this series will be able to give some tips out and help them just hone their skills a little bit more.
Absolutely, and that's why we're doing this. So today's topic is going to be around how, what kind of questions do candidates ask? Should you ask a question? And this is when, whether you're doing a screen call, right, and you get to the end and the recruiter might say like, hey, do you have any questions? Or as they're going through the interview. So talk to me a little bit about that, Manga. What do you see? What are some of the biggest mistakes people typically make? What do you recommend they do instead?
So should they be asking questions? Absolutely. So as a company and even as a recruiter, so I always send them the information up ahead. So they have all the information, they can look it up and, do some research. So we strongly encourage them to go through our websites, ask all the questions, research the interviewers, ask about our, interview process up ahead. So they have all the information they need to start. So what kind of questions they should ask? I think they should focus on two things. Firstly, to find out if this is the job they want. So their questions should be based on that topic. And also you want to demonstrate through those questions that you are the right person for the job. So, through that, you hope to show some skill set to us, something, you're a critical thinker, you're a problem solver. I know this information about the industry. You're also, it helps to find out a lot about the company culture. Every company is different. And that's the way to find out more would be to ask questions on those topics.
And I'm curious, when in the questions of, is this the right job for me? What kind of questions would you ask for, what would you expect the candidate to ask? How would they find that out? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that. They're like, well, I don't know what to even ask.
Right. Questions, surrounded around, specifically about the job, ask more about the team, ask more about the boss, who your potential boss would be, ask about what the team culture looks like, ask about L&D in the company if that's important to you. So I feel like these kind of questions will put you on the track to figuring out if this is the job for you.
Mm-hmm. And L&D, you mentioned, in case anybody's not familiar, is learning and development. So what professional development opportunities are available for you at that company? So those are really, really great. Would these questions, in your opinion, change? So when you speak with them, right? So there's a kind of three gates process. So first you do the screen call, then they'll chat with me, and then they'll go for like a technical interview. So you've mentioned when they speak with you, it's more about, do they actually want the job? Does it sound like it's aligned with them and the culture, right? And then is there other questions that you would recommend for them to ask when they get to my stage or the next hiring manager?
So in most cases, when they're talking to me, they're either running an errand, picking up their child, they're on the move, they're in between a meeting, or they just have like 5 minutes before they have to hop onto the next thing. So we don't really get in depth with most things. And also, I'm sometimes just catching them off guard because it's just a cold call and they're just interested in learning more. So they're probably not prepped with all the questions ahead. So when they come on to your level or your round, which is the cultural screening round, or when they go on to tech screen, they are aware that it's happening, and it'll give them more time to kind of look up and be more prepared. So absolutely, they have different set of questions to ask me and of
Hmm.
course you, and then in the technical screening. When they talk to me, they're mostly just interested about that particular project, and they're interested just an overall view about the company. And they and obviously I'm not a technical expert, so anything related to tech, I obviously refer them to ask them to wait for the technical round. So I'm sure they have a lot of questions on the technical environment and everything. So yeah, I think at every stage of the interview, they get to learn a little bit more about the company and the position. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been with the company for 3 years now, and I'm sure you're about 4 years now. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe if they're talking to somebody else in the company who's been here with us for 10 years, they get a different perspective. Like
Sure.
they get to tell a bigger picture of how the company's grown, how the practice has grown. So it does help, even if it's the same question, to ask at various rounds, just
Mm.
so you get different perspective from different people.
Mm. And you mentioned a good point that sometimes when you reach out to them, they might be like in the middle of running their errands, so they might not have questions up top of their head. But I think it's a good kind of just rule to have is, in general, if your resume is out there, if you know you're applying currently, and you should kind of be expecting calls from recruiters, or at least be on your feet to kind of ready to ask basic questions about the job role, etc. So like I totally or you know what I mean. It's even better to even ask to reschedule. So I think that's probably even a better opportunity for them to ask those questions and have you call them back, because I'm sure like if they're like, listen, can you call me back in 30 minutes? Maybe that way they buy themselves some time. I think it's worse to be unprepared, because it does, first impressions do matter, and it might be a turnoff to you as a recruiter if they're just not asking any questions, as if they're not at all interested, versus maybe they just needed a few minutes to prepare. So if you're listening and you're like, well, what if you catch me off guard? Ask the recruiter to call back, and maybe that's a good way to kind of prevent, a no questions situation. I'm
Absolutely.
curious. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I also recommend anybody who's in the market right now looking for an opportunity to have a bunch of questions already prepared.
Right.
Because you know that call's coming. It's just so it might
Mm-hmm.
just catch you at the wrong moment. But if you have a bunch of questions you want to ask, but just to check for, cultural viability, keep them ready.
Yeah, absolutely. And one last question for you, Manga. Are there questions that people should not ask, at least not on the first call? Are there anything that's like a red flag to you as a recruiter?
Uh, when they're more interested in finding out how much does this job pay without even finding out more about the position,
Right.
I feel like that's a really big, red flag to me, because they're just interested in, the money aspect of it. They're not interested in the company. A lot of the times, I have candidates sitting in a tech screen asking them HR related questions, which I feel they should know already that they're not the right people to answer those questions. When is your start date? What does my insurance look like? They're not the people to give you those answers. So I feel some of the candidates, they need to understand what questions to ask and what kind of rounds you're in.
Mm, that's an excellent point. And a final mention for me is that when in doubt, we have this beautiful technology called AI, and you can literally put into ChatGPT or even Google, what kind of questions should I ask a recruiter? What kind of questions should I ask an HR person? What kind of questions should I ask the team if I'm entering in a panel or two people, or it's a hiring manager versus a recruiter, and so on. So I think there's a lot of resources. And, my bottom line as somebody who's in recruitment as well is, there's no excuse to not asking questions, and there's, even less excuse to asking bad questions, if that makes sense, or focusing very strongly on salary. And for those people who are listening, well, salary is important. It is important, but at the end of the day, you also want to make sure you portray yourself to the person you're speaking with as somebody who cares about their careers, who cares about their development, and who understands what they want out of a job and a career and so on. And salary is important to all of us, but it shouldn't be the first conversation. You know what I mean? So it has to be, there
Right.
has to be something more that takes place before you go into salary.
Right.
And usually nowadays, all salary ranges are posted out there, so you can always go back and do that research yourself after you get off the phone call.
That's true. That's true.
Um,
Just focus more on proving that you're the right person for the job before you ask for things like that. That's what I thought.
Absolutely. Well, Manga, thank you so much. This has been super insightful, and hopefully, people who are listening gonna, take this to heart and come prepared for their next interview.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me.